Hello and welcome to a very special edition of Team English Talks. Today we're going to be talking about reading and well-being. Now you might be wondering why? Why are we talking about this rather than focusing on some exam text? Well, because it's all linked to the BDAT Big Read that's going to be coming up very soon at the beginning of October. So as well as listening to this podcast, keep your eyes and ears out for events, competitions that are all linked to the podcast. So first of all, Mr. Steele.
Hello, Miss Weston.
Why? It's just Mr. Steele here today because everyone else was busy.
Yeah, and everybody else is reading for well-being. That's
yeah,
what
they're too busy reading for their well-being. So first of all, Mr. Steele, do you read for your well-being?
I do, and I think sometimes it's important to be honest about things like this. And I feel like reading for well-being is something that I acknowledge is fantastic for my own well-being, and that it is great for my well-being when I do it. But there are times where I know I should read more for my own well-being, and I unfortunately don't, because sometimes life gets in the way. But I use reading as this idea of trying to be conscious about my own well-being, and when I want to set aside some time to sit and pick up a book and carry on where I was, or maybe an afternoon off or something like that. Just by the fire. The rain outside sometimes during autumn, it is fantastic for our well-being, and it's very important that we promote that to everybody.
Yeah, and I think reading was one of those things where sometimes when we are feeling in a headspace that we could do with a well-being boost, often we don't turn to books because sometimes that can feel a bit too mentally taxing, but actually it is one of the better things to do. So it has been scientifically proven to reduce psychological distress. It increases social, mental and emotional well-being. And that a 2015 study found that non-readers are 28% more likely than readers to report feelings of depression. Yeah. So we have signs that it is incredibly good for us. Not only that, I think it opens up our world, and I think that can be a very useful thing to see that there's a world beyond what we're experiencing at that moment.
Yeah, and it links to that age-old idea of mindfulness.
Yes, exactly.
When things are getting too much for us, we're not inclined, like you just said, to turn to the things that do help our mindfulness.
Yeah.
And it's not surprising to hear you say that stat about the fact that people who don't read are more likely to encounter feelings of depression, because we all know what it feels like. We all know what it feels like when we've had a terrible day, everything feels a little bit overwhelming. We get home and kind of all we want to do is veg out, for want of a better word. And sometimes it doesn't feel easy to pick up a book and try and encounter that mindfulness. So it really does help to try and recognize that. It's like, yes, I know I'm feeling overwhelmed, but I need to recognize that and engage with something that's going to help me a little bit more.
And I think as well that there's so many things that can easily distract us nowadays, social media, phone games, all of those things that might have a very short-term impact, but reading long-term will overall help well-being.
Absolutely, and I think sometimes it helps to get into a routine with it, doesn't it, as well? We can sometimes give in to those urges to just watch the TV show we've been binge watching or something like that. And I think do you have like a specific time or routine or anything like that links to like when you engage with your reading for well-being? Yeah,
so I'm a pre-sleep reader. That's my sort of time to read, because I feel like I purposely start the kind of, you can tell my mum because I'm going to say bedtime routine earlier than I need to, because I want to make sure I have 20 minutes carved out where I can just sit and relax. So, pack my bag for the next day, make sure I've got my lunch ready, brush my teeth, and then I can say, that the next 20 minutes is just sitting and relaxing and reading.
And that's all it takes, isn't it, really? I think people sometimes underestimate the fact that reading for well-being doesn't have to mean that you are spending your entire day. You wake up, you sit in a couch, on a couch, and you pick up a book and you don't leave until you've finished so many pages or whatever. Just 20 minutes, like you say, in a day has untold benefits for your mental health and for just unwinding. Especially, I'm very similar to you, Miss Weston, in that I try to build reading into my bedtime routine.
Yeah.
I do. I'm not a mum, but I try to build that in, because I think, again, thinking about the easy distractions, it's far too easy to want to pick up the device or something like that. And we're talking to a lot of our students, and I don't think they fully realise the negative impact that those bright screens can have immediately before bedtime.
Lots of quick changes,
exactly.
Loud music. They're designed to wake your brain up and have that endorphin release. And while your brain on the very, very short term might enjoy that, it's not going to give you nowhere near that same benefit that reading is going to give.
No, absolutely not.
So now we've talked a little bit about when we like to read. Let's think about what we like to read. So, Mr. Steele, can you tell me any genres or particular books that you go back to when you're like, I just want something that's going to pick me up?
Yeah, it's something that as I've got older, my tastes have started to change a little bit, and something that at the moment I absolutely just cannot get enough of when it comes to these just cosy reads that help me wind down is a good murder mystery. I absolutely adore them. Like, it's probably only in the last 3 years or so that I picked up my first Agatha Christie book. Miss Owens would be very, very proud.
Yeah.
And just all sorts I'm reading a book at the moment called The Strings of Murder by Oscar de Muriel. It's about as you can probably guess, a concert violinist who is hearing strings before people get murdered and stuff like that. So it's set in Scotland in the Victorian era. It is absolutely just what you need, and I think it's not emotionally taxing. It's entertaining, and it just helps you unwind. And I think it's important to find something that you enjoy when you're reading for well-being. Like, if I'm reading for well-being, I am not going to sit and read a very taxing research paper.
No.
I mean, I do enjoy reading research papers and getting the information that comes from reading research papers, but they are not bedtime reading.
No.
And I think that's sometimes a barrier that a lot of people have to reading for well-being. It's finding the right type of book. So I don't know about you, what are your sort of go-to?
I'm a bit of a murder mystery fan as well. I love a good crime novel, both kind of cozy crime. So I've recently read a book which was called Murder by Definition, which is about a woman who works for a dictionary, it's written by Susie Dent, who does Dictionary Corner in Countdown, and she solves a murder. It's the first in a series. Solves a murder through her knowledge of language. So obviously, as an English teacher, that was very fun. But I think one of the nice things about a murder mystery is, it's formulaic, and I mean that in a positive way. You have a puzzle, you have a conundrum, you have a hero, you have a villain, and by the end it's going to be wrapped up. And I think that's when you kind of want that comfort. I'm also I'm a rereader. I like to go back and read books that I've read before. So sometimes if I'm having a bit of a reading rut, and I know that reading is going to be good for me, but I'm struggling to get into a book, I go back to previous books. So Pride and Prejudice is a book that I love. The Harry Potter series, I'm always going to get some enjoyment out of that. And I think that, like you said, it's not about reading what you think you should. There's no such thing as a good book or a bad book. There's just a book you enjoy.
Yeah, absolutely.
And what I might have said Pride and Prejudice, and Mr. Steele probably thinking, you read that for well-being. But that's because, and I heard him talk about research paper, and I thought, I wouldn't read that full stop, never mind for well-being. So it's about finding what you love.
I think that's a mindset that needs addressing quite a lot, isn't it? That idea of you never should read what you feel like you should be reading.
Yeah.
I went through a phase of that, and as a sort of 15, 16-year-old thinking, I've got to have read these classics, and if I'm interested in reading or English or anything like that, I have to have read these books.
Yeah.
And sometimes you just but why?
Yeah.
But why am I reading this? Because I don't want to read it just so I can put my hand up when someone asks, has anyone read this book? You know, I'm not going to name any specific books for fear of judgment by anybody who might hear what books I absolutely despise. Mr. Bruff, to name just one, he definitely does not listen to this podcast.
No, he definitely listens to this podcast.
But, you know, I think that's an important message to get across to our students. Like, you need to read what you want to read, not what somebody else wants you to read. Apart from when you're in English lessons, obviously.
Yeah, when you're in English lessons, you do have to read. But hopefully, you can enjoy some aspects of that. I think, you know, as well as reading, like, for that mindfulness, it also opens up new worlds for you, and, you know, teaches you about empathy, teaches you how other people live their lives. And sometimes, you know, if you're having a hard time, it can be very easy to get caught up and think that what you're going through is the be all and end all, and it's very hard to see an escape and see a way out. Whereas I think reading shows you that, you know, no problem's a new problem. And I don't mean that to dismiss problems, I just mean that someone will have gone through something similar and found a way out, and reading can help you understand that, because you can read the stories. And I'm talking about fiction here because it doesn't have to be a real life story, it can be fiction, but what the characters go through can help you relate and help you think through your own, you know, your own problems, your own relationships, your own sense of where you fit in the world, your own opportunities. And I think that's an important factor in reading. It's not just about enjoying a story, it's also about opening up your eyes to, you know, you can read a story, you know, if you think about the book we do in year 9 about, you know, young women in Afghanistan, that's open up our eyes to an experience that we would never personally have, but we can learn and understand, and I think that's important for well-being as well. And
I think that links quite nicely as well to another sort of thing that I like to do when I'm reading for well-being. I do have like obviously my crying books, and the book I'm currently reading that's there ready for me to pick up whenever I want, but I always, and I'm going to be judged I think by anybody again who listens to this podcast, but no matter where I am, I always have a book of poetry on my bedside, just so if I ever need just something to engage with just before I'm going to sleep, I will pick up my book of poetry and I'll just flick and I'll pick a random poem. And you know, sometimes you said about like experiences and having empathy and almost I think sometimes seeing a shared experience sometimes is very, very important, and that's why poetry I find is so good for that, in that there's a lot of metaphorical language and imagery that, you know, perhaps the writer didn't intend to resonate with you, but just by sitting and considering the words and letting them wash over you is so incredibly profound for your well-being. I find, in terms of like, oh God, that I get that, I resonate with that, I've made some sort of connection with a piece of art, and it just sort of helps your mind just declench. You know what I mean? It just it completely just relaxes, and that's absolutely why I love picking up bits like that.
Yeah, and I think, you know, in this modern world, we're constantly bombarded with information, constantly bombarded with you know, news and often terrible things happen. And I think reading can be that pause where you can take your time and really get into something, even if it is just taking your time for 20 minutes. It's you know, that long form, that extended thought process that I think that reading requires is so important for your brain's health, for your mental health, and just kind of your outlook on life. Okay, so I think we've kind of discussed reading well-being. So I'll just finish off with some facts and statistics. So 3 in 5 children and young people said that reading helped them relax. So again, all about relaxing. 1 in 2, so it's almost half, said that reading made them feel happy. And, you know, it can also help them feel more confident. So 30% said it helped them felt more confident or help them deal with problems. So I think that reading goes beyond how literate you are, your skills as a reader. It's about your mental health. And if in your life you only ever read trashy crime novels, I don't really like the word trashy, but about, what is it, a violin strings?
Well, yes.
Or dictionaries solving murders. That's fine, because that's...
We know what you mean when you say the word trashy, though. You don't mean it's terrible.
No, I don't mean it's terrible.
It's not literature that's going to be held in the canon for hundreds of years to come, but it's still, that doesn't mean it doesn't have value at all. It can still have the same impact on your well-being that any book can, as long as you are enjoying it. That's the point, isn't it?
Okay, well, thank you very much for listening. We hope this podcast helped with your well-being, and keep an eye out for lots of BDAT Big Read events coming up, all to do with reading and well-being.
Sounds very exciting, doesn't it? Will all the details be published on the school website or socials? Or
details will be published on school website, socials, and also in school on the bulletin.
Brilliant. Yeah, lovely. So we'll look out for them. Thank you.
Brilliant. Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.